Hey folks, Gway. Apologies for my scruffiness. I've been doing a bunch of stuff around the house and around the church here, just fixing some stuff. But my daughter sent me a clip of of a guy offering a speech at a university. He was giving the commencement speech at a university. The guy's name is Harrison Butker. He's the place kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he was invited to a Roman Catholic university to offer a commencement speech. The rah, you did great, keep going, everything's going to turn up your way. You're amazing people. You put all the hard work in. You deserve to feel really, really good about yourself. The future's so bright, you got to wear shades kind of talk. He's apparently, if you watch the video, you'll know he must be a devout Roman Catholic and very about his faith, and he holds some pretty conservative. He has some pretty conservative views. His theology is really quite conservative. In his commencement speech, he talks about the church, about church leadership, about leadership in general. He talks about the laity and the responsibility of the laity. He talks about people and how people should be living the lives that God has created them to live, living according to the purpose that God has given them. The living and being the people that God designed them to be. Now, in his case, again, it's a very conservative theology. It's a very conservative worldview. He talks about men being men and women being women and where women should find themselves. That despite the fact that they might be graduating university right now, they really need a husband and kids in order to truly be fulfilled. Now keep in mind, his speech must have been in line with the views of the university, because as he spoke, people were cheering. They liked what he had to say. Men and women liked what he had to say. And I'm not going to sit here today and argue about his theology. Personally, I think if you don't look at the details of what he's offering, if you're just looking at the grand scheme of things, if you're not looking at the trees, rather looking at the forest, I think what he offers is a really beautiful vision of life. I really do. I think what he's offering, again, pulling way back and not worrying about people's sex organs, I think you can see a really beautiful worldview, a really beautiful way of living. And that is that we all should be living according to our purpose. We should all be living the lives that God has created us to live. We should be doing the things. We should be engaged in the things that we are really, really good at, that we are gifted to be doing, the things that, again, the things that God created us to do. Imagine that world where all of us were able to be the people that God created us to be, that we didn't have any of the cosmopolitan concerns like paying rent or mortgage or buying food for yourself, for your children, paying for your insurance and your medical costs and your prescriptions. Imagine a world where we could just be the people God formed us to be. That'd be amazing. That'd be really, really amazing. And that is what he's sort of getting at. I mean, again, he kind of gets into the whole women should be moms and wives, and they should be at home, and husbands should be fathers. Men should be husbands and fathers as well, and that they shouldn't allow work to intrude. That women don't need a career in order to feel fulfilled. Fulfillment comes from family. Sadly, as I was thinking about what he had to say, and he said a bunch of other things too that there's probably a book here that we could peel things apart and look at things, but I just sadly in 15 minutes I don't have the ability to speak about all that. But this would be a wonderful world. Not the one where men are men and women are, barefoot and pregnant, walking around the home without an opinion of their own, but a world where all of us, every person, was able to live the life that God had in mind for them, to be the people that God created us to be. That'd be an amazing world. But we don't live in that world. Now, he makes $3.6 million a year plus endorsements. Okay, he makes $3.6 million a year. Last year, in 2023, he touched the football 73 times. He had 35 field goal attempts. He made 33, which is pretty good, I think. And he had 38 extra points, and he made all of them. And I think that's pretty amazing. Now, listen, this guy trained his whole life to do this. He practices. He practices every, throughout the season. He practices all the time with his team. He studies, he trains, he works out, he has to eat right. He has to live a lifestyle that allows him to be an elite professional athlete. And he is an elite professional athlete. And I'm not bemoaning the money that he makes. Fair enough. If you can get it, girl. Like that's awesome. But he's speaking from a really privileged place. And I know that word can bother people sometimes, but he is speaking from a really privileged place. I will never, in the course of my life, I'll never make $3.6 million. Like total. The average Canadian will never make $3.6 million over the course of their career. The average American will never make $3.6 million over the course of their career. And I'm basing that on the government statistics that have come out and a 50-year career. If you and I worked 50 years at the average Canadian and American salaries, we'd still fall short. Okay? Most of us don't have the ability to live the life that he's asking us to live. Most families don't have the ability that he's claiming is the godly way of living. The world, our societal structures literally will not allow that. Most Canadian families, 2 incomes plus, right? So 2 people working full-time with a little side hustle happening as well. That's very real. And we need to do that in order to pay our bills. We need to do that in order to eat. We don't have the ability for one person to stay home and survive. But again, I'm trying to look at this, trying to look at the forest here. Because as I was thinking about it, and as I was thinking about that world, and you know how much I love thinking about the what ifs, I thought, well, what about all the poets? What about all the poets, those people who've been given those beautiful, poetic souls? And all the musicians, all the songwriters. What about all the artists? What about all those people that, sometimes society doesn't look at and say, wow, you did a really good thing today. Instead, we look and say, lazy, you should get a real job. But that's how God made them. That's who God made them to be artists. Not just factory workers, right? But what about all the factory workers? What about those people that are built to construct, right? Built to put things together, whose brains work in that kind of way, that they excel at that kind of job? What about all the people who are built to be servers, right? Who are gifted with the ability to be hospitable and to people, including when we're being jerks. What about all the people out there who are at home waiting tables, alive when it comes to waiting tables, and yet are only pulling in, what is it, in the US, $3 an hour minimum wage? We have a whole world of people, not just females, but we have a whole world of people who would love nothing more than to live the way God had designed them to live. We have a world full of people who would love nothing more than to be the people that God made them to be. And they'd starve to death if they did. They'd starve to death if they did, and they would worry constantly that the next government was going to take this away or take that away or take the other thing away. We have a whole world of people who, instead of living the lives that God had created them to live, are doing everything they can just to put food on the table, just to keep a roof over the house, over the heads of their families. There's a whole bunch of people out there who don't think having a family's in the cards for them. Don't think having a partner is in the cards for them because they have nothing to offer. They don't feel like they have anything to offer. I'd love our world. I would love our world to be the place where people can live the lives that God created them to live. I would love that world to be the one we are all striving to create. Maybe this is a place where the churches could step in and say, hey, maybe we can help with this. Maybe this is a place where millionaire place kickers can say, I have much more than I need. I'll happily help these families live the way that God has asked them to live. Maybe his speech could be the catalyst for us to bring in things like universal basic income. Because if we bring universal basic income, we could perhaps all live the lives that God has created us to live. There's a great study out of Quebec from a couple of decades ago where they brought in universal basic income into a small community to see what would happen. And the results were really quite amazing and surprising for some people. Quality of life went up. Happiness, joy went up. People weren't sitting around doing nothing. As a matter of fact, the number of people on social assistance went down. Check it out. Anyway, I'm going to go. I'm going to get back to doing the work that I need to do, but man, let's build that world, huh? Let's build that world so that people can live in the way that God created them to live. Do the things that God created them to do. Be the people that God created them to be. They want to be stay-at-home moms or dads. Brilliant. They want to write poetry. Excellent. They want to put carburetors together. Fantastic. They want to spend 14 minutes putting together a YouTube video. Excellent. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that we together will build that kind of world where everybody can be who God made them to be. And I pray that as that world is coming about, you and I can experience at least a few minutes here and there of being the people that God created us to be. Because Butker was right. That is where our joy is found. Amen. Nemultus.